way we have plenty of time for everyone to speak. And then the first thing that we'll start with is the approval of the commission's minutes for October 4th, 2021. So any changes, commissioners, that we need to make? No?
Make a motion to approve the minutes as written.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those against? Okay, that passes. All right, we'll move right into the public hearing. Public hearing to consider a conditional use permit request by MFF Holdings LLC to allow multifamily dwelling District R3 uses in the General Business District B3 for conversion of the former daycare center to a multifamily use with 7 apartments on the property located at 95 Patricia Lane, tax map number 501-1-26B, partial ID 1810188, 0.928 acres. The property is designated as business commercial on the future land use map of the 2013 Christiansburg Comprehensive Plan. So at this point in time, Benjamin, if you'd start us off with just a little overview of what the public hearing is all about tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can you hear me okay?
Absolutely.
As you said, the request tonight concerns 95 Patricia Lane. The parcel in question is approximately an acre. It's on the west side of Patricia Lane, south of the intersection with Roanoke Street. It is mostly occupied by a large single-story building that has been used as a daycare. I believe the applicant will elaborate some on that when the time comes. The request is for a conditional use permit to allow the property to be converted into 7 apartments. Those are of varying sizes from about 602 square feet to 900 square feet. The town code, the minimum size residential unit is 600 feet, so that all of those are large enough. Property is zoned B3, and our code allows for multifamily uses to be allowed in B3 with the conditional use permit. Most of the units are 1 bedroom. I believe the largest has 2. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Okay. Well, at this point in time, what I'd like to do is open it up to the public. And I'd like to have you limit your comments to no more than 5 minutes. And at that point in time, approach the podium, state your name and address, and if anyone wishes to speak, now's the time.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Would you like the applicant to speak first? On behalf of the request, or?
That would probably be helpful.
I think so, too. That's a good point. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, and good evening, Chairperson Johnson and members of the Commission. My name is Mary Ellen Goodlatte. I'm an attorney with the Roanoke firm of Glenn, Feldman, Darby, and Goodlatte, and we represent the applicant. And with me this evening are Steve Simones of Balzer & Associates, sitting at the end there, and next to him is Fulton Gaylor of McLeod Enterprises, an affiliate of the applicant. The applicant is also the owner of the property, which has been used, as Ben indicated, as a child daycare center, and it will soon be closing. Consequently, the property needs to be repurposed. To that end, we're requesting that a conditional use permit be issued in order to allow the existing building on the property to be converted from the child daycare use to 7 apartments. As staff has indicated to you, the property is currently zoned B3, which is the town's general business district. And directly across Patricia Lane from the property is a townhome development, and adjoining the property to the north at the intersection of Patricia Lane and Roanoke Street is a parcel which has been previously subdivided for a townhome development. The concept plan that was filed with the application, and may I have the slide put up here so we can take a look at it? Here we go. That's the concept plan that was filed with the application. It shows the existing building, which is back here, and it shows the parking area, and that shows how the existing gravel parking area is going to be improved so that it is asphalt and that its entrance is going to be defined. Right now, there's kind of a rolling access from Patricia onto the site itself. Except to add windows or make other changes required by the building code, no changes to the exterior of the existing building are being proposed. That existing gravel driveway, as I indicated, is going to be paved and the entrance is going to be defined. And currently that entrance really runs all the way along Patricia. There is no defined entrance as shown on the concept plan and as proposed. And except for one unit, which will have 2 bedrooms, all the rest of the apartments will be 1 bedroom. Let me advance the slide here. The interior layout on the slide was included as part of the application. These will all be market rate apartments. Monthly rents are expected to range between $700 to $1,200 monthly and will not be subsidized. The traffic generated by these 7 apartments will be significantly less than the traffic generated by the child daycare use, and well under the 100 vehicle trips per hour, which would have triggered the requirement for a traffic impact analysis under your code. The ITE trip generation manual actually calculates that the 7 apartments would generate 4 trips during the AM peak hours, and those AM peak hours are 7 to 9 a.m., and 5 trips during the PM peak hours, and those hours are 4 to 6 p.m. And those numbers are significantly lower than the number of trips generated by the daycare use, given that the facility is licensed for approximately 70 children. The existing building is brick and metal construction. A photograph of that existing building is right here. This is kind of a view of the brick entrance, and you can see the existing gravel parking lot in front leading up to that brick segment and the metal portion of the structure behind. A wider view is shown on this side. As you can see, the entrance and the parking area would be defined. This kind of shows you how that entrance is really a rolling one. Let me get my clicker there, rolling along Patricia Lane. And on this side, you can also make out the existing restaurant and hotel located on the other side of Roanoke Street, kind of looking north. These are those, that's the restaurant and hotel on the other side of Roanoke Street. Back to the concept plan. I know, Commissioners, you have members of the public that are here to speak to you about this application. Steve, Fulton, and I are very happy to answer any questions that you may have, either now or after you hear from members of the public.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
Okay, now I'll open it up to the rest of the public, and I'll just remind you that state your name, your address, and state your comments to the commission and not to the public. Is there anyone wishing to speak?
I'm Judy Self. I live with my husband Warren Self at 350 Patricia Lane, at the end of Patricia Lane on the cul-de-sac. A sign posting news of this public hearing appeared within the last few weeks in front of the metal building hosting the Honey Tree Child Care business. No one from MFF Holdings has reached out to our neighborhood with information on the proposed apartments, whether, for example, they will be rented or leased by the night, week, month, or year, or who will be the served population, or how this proposed conditional use zoning will enhance our neighborhood, or what will be the impact of the apartments on the current values of our homes. In the past, all of this kind of information was provided in a neighborly way well in advance of hearings, rezonings, or proposed new structures near our properties. Perhaps these lapses are because the proposed structure to be used as residences is so incongruent, so out of place in our neighborhood. Most, if not all, the residents of Patricia Lane believe that this proposed apartment building will have a negative impact on our neighborhood. We are a united family neighborhood of 11 townhomes and 5 1-, 2-, or 3-story homes on Patricia Lane, known as DeHart Subdivision after the builder who developed this neighborhood. Each of the townhomes and separate houses on Patricia Lane is a single-family dwelling. Families who live here purchased and invested in their homes with the intention of staying in the neighborhood long-term. Mr. DeHart constructed the metal building under current discussion to house his construction materials and equipment as he developed Patricia Lane, thus 95 Patricia Lane's B3 zoning. When the development of the neighborhood was finished, a local church eventually bought and converted the metal building's interior to house the K-5 grades of its private school. When the school moved to a larger building, Shaw LLC bought the building and housed a child care facility for Christiansburg children. Shaw LLC conveyed the building to his daughter's LLC, Little Bit LLC, who in turn sold it several years ago to MFF Holdings LLC, which is housed at the same Roanoke address as a Honey Tree LLC that recently will vacate this metal building. Patricia Lane residents embraced the school and both of the child care facilities, interacted with the facilities, showed up to applaud the children's various holiday costume parades, science walks, or any of that along Patricia Lane. They were very gentle daytime neighbors of ours. However, most, if not all, of the residents of Patricia Lane feel that MFF Holdings' proposed apartment buildings, as it is currently constructed, does not fit within our neighborhood as residences aesthetically or functionally. Patricia Lane families invested in their homes, often their biggest investment. MFF Holdings' proposed apartment building will potentially house as many as 7 different rental units. And given the nature of the apartments proposed, these dwellings are not likely to be long-term residences since they are rentals. Conversely, the townhomes and single homes on our street have current tax assessments ranging from $149,200 to $455,300. Actual sale prices are even higher. The last home that sold in our neighborhood sold several months ago for $450,000. Those of us who live in this neighborhood value the beauty and the harmony of our dwellings and their settings. Furthermore, the Hamilton Place townhomes range from 1,567 square feet to 2,218 square feet, with the average being 1,953 square feet. The 5 single homes on Patricia Lane range from 2,380 square feet to 3,931 square feet. However, the proposed 7 apartments will be built within only a 5,300 square foot industrial metal building, with no outside modifications, except perhaps enlarging several windows to meet town code, and this is per the letter that went out. Its outside appearance as an apartment building will be totally out of character with the other Patricia Lane family dwellings, and its interior apartments will be tiny, no larger than the average hotel room suite with a fold-out sofa and a little kitchenette. It is difficult to imagine comfortably living there during a year's lease. Each of these apartments is much less than 1/3 of the square footage of the townhouses on Patricia Lane across the street. These are tiny spaces. Most of the apartment bedrooms are 10 by 11. Most are 1-bedroom apartments, and only apartment 2 and 7 can accommodate a 36-inch round dining table and 4 chairs. The other apartments have a dedicated 12 inches of the length of the sink dishwasher island to eat upon. Finally, except for the front 2 apartments, the other 5 apartments have a total of only 2 small windows. The size, appearance, and appointments of these proposed living spaces are not congruent with our current Patricia Lane residences. Please, we are asking that you recommend to Town Council that they not approve this conditional use permit for these apartments on Patricia Lane. We ask that you maintain the character and the quality of the residences within the neighborhood in which we have invested and in which we live. And I thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak?
Hello, I'm Billy Matty. I know a great deal of y'all. My wife owns a unit there at Patricia Lane, a townhouse, and that's the reason I'm here. There's been a water problem down at the street where Roanoke Street meets Patricia Lane for quite a while, and realistically, I don't say you could dump any more water there until something's taken care of. I mean, the lady just spoke and made this comment about adding the asphalt, and that's exactly what we don't need there. I mean, the asphalt is not going to help that situation. And I never realized, the reason they haven't fixed it probably in the town, it's going to take a lot of money. And I just don't think it's fair to dump more people in there till they fix that problem. And the asphalt, adding the asphalt, that's going to make that much more runoff, in my opinion. I just don't think the metal building will ever be able to transform into a nice-looking residential property. I think before y'all zoned, but some of it originally back a while back, I don't know how long it was, a few years ago, you zoned it for townhouses. Well, townhouses are a lot different than what they're asking to put there. Those are garden units at the best. They're really not garden units, but I just think that if you're going to zone it, you ought to proffer that it be townhouses. And then that would tie it in with the subdivision. I know that sooner or later somebody wants to develop this property, or they want to develop, somebody's going to develop it. And if you took the property and did the proffer that it would be townhouses, that would tie in with that whole street. Everything would come together. And she answered a few of the questions. I was glad to know that it's going to be a non-subsidy, and that was really nice of them to do that. But that's where I'm coming from. I just think it's a tough sale to prove apartments there with the water problem we have. Does anybody in the planning department, have y'all are aware of it? I mean, people from the subdivision have called numerous times about it. So, thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Anyone else wishing to speak? Sure.
My name is Vicki Kitts, and I live at 355 Patricia Lane in Christiansburg. And
Can the volume be turned up on that a little bit?
oh, maybe it's me because I'm so short, dude.
I haven't been able to hear a lot of it, for some hard of hearing.
Well, I'm glad you spoke up. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Dude's my neighbor across the street.
Gotcha.
And I'm thankful. And the Selfs live right at my corner, and Judy expressed a lot of the concerns I have, so I won't repeat those. I do want to mention something about the traffic that comes from Roanoke Road onto Patricia Lane. Our road is it's limited in terms of length, And I guess it's, you know, the Department of Transportation could affirm that it's wide enough, but it is a difficult piece when people are coming and going. Mostly because in the last few years, if there's an accident on North 81, that traffic comes down Roanoke Road and goes down Christiansburg Mountain. I have sat myself for at least 40 minutes, and I'm not exaggerating because I time it, because I'm sitting there and I'm waiting too long, waiting to get out. And by the time the traffic comes off of 81 up Roanoke Road or off the interstate, either one, no one is really friendly enough to stop and let you out. That sounds like it's a random complaint, but it happens all too often. So usually I try to wait on a truck and then make a right, then go down the mountain and turn around and make a left. My only other comment about traffic there is that the daycare, there would be just a few cars here and there in the early morning. Just to give you a comparison, they weren't really an issue. They came really early. And I may have been the only one up besides Dude then. And so we really didn't see a lot of cars. In the evenings, there would be a few cars to pick up their kids, but they never came at the same time. It's all random. And a school bus. I guess we all got so attached to the daycare we hated to see it go, so I know I have to do that. I guess I have the same concerns also that Billy mentioned about the water. It's an issue. And if there's another group of homes there, I think it's going to get a little crowded with the traffic, so we may need to look at that. I don't know how you do that, but that's a problem. Somebody behind me just said, in terms of the apartments, I don't know who would answer this, where would the garbage collection be for them? Would they, right now we take ours to the road for our garbage pickup and our recycling. Is that what they would do too? I'm just looking.
I would guess so, because it's in the city limits.
Yeah, I would suggest that's a good question for the applicant when they return. They could probably tell you.
Okay, I just heard someone, I thought that was a good question. I wanted to be sure it was
We'll make
asked.
sure that we address that.
Okay.
Okay.
And I shared the concerns Mrs. Self brought up. We're happy to be there, and it's hard to think, we just can't picture that in a metal building, but and I thank you for listening to my concerns.
Thank you very much, Vicki.
I almost left you my good pen.
Okay, anyone else wishing to speak?
I'll put this back up where it belongs.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, no, just kidding about shortness.
Yeah, I am short, yeah. I'm sorry, I forgot to move it.
My name is Terry Dehoney, and I live across the road at 70 Patricia Lane in the townhomes there. And something that was already brought up, which I don't think we can stress enough, is that what they want to do with these apartments has nothing in common with the rest of the neighborhood. Nothing. And I'm not sure why they would want to put it there either, because if they don't maintain that building any better than they have in the past, then that's just going to be a pit. I mean, I walked over there today and looked around that building, and I don't know whose responsibility it was to clean up out back or anything, but it's a trash pit back there. And if they don't do anything more to the outside of that building at all, it's just going to become more and more of an eyesore as we go down the road. And that's just not right. It's not right to do that to those of us who care about our properties, who have lived there for a long time. I haven't lived there near as long as some of these other people who've been there for years and years and years. And now all of a sudden somebody wants to turn that into something that it should not be, was never meant to be. I don't think it's right. And I know that what's right or what's wrong doesn't always carry too much weight, but this is clearly wrong. it was brought up about the water at the end of the street there, where Patricia Lane and Roanoke meet up. There is just all kinds of water there that will only get worse, as it was brought up. And you can't, there's times in the winter that water freezes, and you can't get in and out of there without slipping and sliding. That's all there is to it. There's always stone there that washes down. That's another thing. I used to ride a motorcycle. I got rid of it because I didn't like pulling in and out of places like that, because you put your foot down and stop and hope to balance yourself, your foot would slide out from underneath you. Those are all things that need to be taken care of before anybody thinks about adding more to it. And did I hear that right, that there will be no other external improvements?
Sir, address the commission, please.
Okay. I think that's what I heard. That's unbelievable. You know, if it continues, it's just going to be, it won't get any better, let me put it that way. That will just continue to decrease in value on its own, and then it's going to wipe out the value of our homes too. Now, where's the justice in that? How does that seem right to anybody? It's a mistake. And if they want to provide homes to people, go find some bare land and build it. Do them a favor, do the renters a favor, do themselves a favor, maybe by having it in a nicer building, and do us a favor by not devaluating our homes. I guess that's about all I have, other than to say it's a mistake, and we'd like to stop it.
Thank you, Terry.
Yep.
Anyone else wishing to speak?
My name's P.L. Griffith, better known to these folks as Dude Griffith. I've been in business here in Christiansburg for 55 years. I'm the oldest resident of Patricia Lane. My house was built, the builder, the contractor that built his house there, when he done it, he was planning on putting a carpet shop where he built that little warehouse that's still standing, and he was going to sell carpet out of that. He was a tile man and a builder. I had him build my house because I've seen the work that he is already doing, and I've been living there 34 years, and it's unsightly, there's no question about it, because it was built for a warehouse. And the thing that's bothers me, and the lady may have mentioned it, because my hearing's bad. 85 years of it, and it's about wore out. And I'm interested in knowing what kind of arrangements you're going to have for the renting. Are you going to have them sign a lease for so long, such a period of time, or are you just going to rent them, and when they want to move out, they just go?
Dude, address your comments to us. Okay, they can't answer.
Well, that's what I'm interested in. I've owned property around this town, sold the last one I had January the 3rd. And I've had dealings with renters. I had a renter that he signed an agreement. He was going to stay there for 5 years. About 2.5 years, he took a notion he was going to move out. I said, "You signed an agreement." He said, "Well, I don't have anything. What are you going to do?" Well, what would I do? Nothing. it wouldn't have done me any good to try to collect my money. And so I was just stuck with the deal, and I'm just wondering if this type thing won't happen there, and you're gonna have a lot of turnover in people. That's my biggest concern, is the turnover in people, because I've had lots of renters over the years. And I've had good ones and I've had bad ones. And the same will be there. That small a place cannot accommodate a family. I don't know how many of them would be in there and maybe have children or whatever. And I noticed in the plan that the utility room is on the back corner. I guess they'll have a washer and dryer or something back there, but they would have to go outside of the living quarters to get into it, according to the plan. And it looks to me more like a way it's channeled in there with the, you don't have that one, picture up there now, but the picture, the other picture that's with this, it shows the building plan, the bedrooms. It looks to, you know, it looks to me like looks like a motel. You know, you go in the front door and you got a hallway. Everybody got to go in and out of the hallway just like you would a motel. And that is not a desirable unit for our area. We don't have that. We have townhouses across the street, and it's detrimental. So I was wondering about the townhouses that they plan on building down below it. I don't know, well, I guess the same company owns all that land, and if they're going to build townhouses down there comparable to the ones across the street, that's going to be detrimental to their plan. I don't understand why they would even want to do that. But then they have petitioned the town to let them do it, and I do not recommend it. And I guess that's all I need to say tonight.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else wishing to speak?
Good evening, Chairman Johnson and Board. I'm Marie Hager, a resident of 100 Patricia Lane. I've been a homeowner there since 1989. Actually a resident 1989, and I purchased it in 1990. Part of that time it was rental property, and since the year about 2000, most every year the rent was over $1,000 and $1,100. And now you're asking to put much lower grade properties, and our cul-de-sac has those beautiful, nice, upscale homes, single family homes. And my concern looking at it, and I did not research it, but I've recently read something that Virginia code for real estate, a home that's classified residential, there's a minimum square footage for a bedroom. And I don't recall the square footage of the bedrooms on their floor plans. And it also requires for fire code a certain type of exiting for residents to get in and out, for a home to be considered residential, permanent residential, and also bedrooms have to have a window to exit in case of fire. It has to have a door on the floor and a window. The code in Virginia that I recently read states that. So these things need to seriously be considered. Another problem, which we've enjoyed though, it's a cul-de-sac. We have very little traffic, but like someone mentioned, when there's a wreck on 81 and they detour down Roanoke Street, if someone in our cul-de-sac needs to get out to go to work, it could take us almost an hour to get out. And that's with few residents going in and out at the same time. You get apartments there, that's more traffic. And in the morning, if you get 4 or 5 cars going out, more than we already have, that could make a difference of, am I going to get to work on time? Am I going to get fired? Because every day I'm getting to work an hour late. And it's a big concern. If fire trucks have to come down Roanoke Street, when there's especially a detour on 81, if they're coming our direction from downtown, I don't know how a fire truck would get there. And you've got increased risk of fire with residential properties inside that warehouse-style building. So again, the fire truck, there's no shoulder on that road, there's no sidewalk on that road, and it's such a tiny, narrow road, there's no passing lane. Our turn lane is so short and so narrow, God forbid there's ice on that turn lane. You'd slam right in, coming into Patricia Lane, you would slam right into any vehicle on ice sitting there at the stop sign waiting to pull out on Roanoke Street. So these have been my concerns. And then I have 2 questions when they're able to answer. And this might offend some. I don't know if this is proper to ask, but I'm going to ask, is this intended to be a drug rehab center or a halfway home? Like the village that was set up behind us about 200-300 yards down the road, for people getting out of jail on drug offenses or rehabbing from drugs. It just seems strange in our neighborhood to put residential homes in that type of building with that type of setup. It just doesn't, like they said before, it doesn't fit the type of homes that we have. And another question I have, if they're able to answer, this might be very offensive, it might be politically incorrect, but I'm going to ask, are they going to bring refugees in there? Is that what they're doing, using that to place refugees? They've got groups in Roanoke that they said they have to move out. And I don't mind some of these groups coming in, but again, the structure and the price range don't fit our community. And like most of the people on this side have lived there for 30 years. And I've been a homeowner there for 31 years. And I think everybody in here has been a homeowner there for at least 20 years. And we do have our lifetime investment invested into these properties. And we don't have a choice to move at this point. And we're going to take such a huge loss to put such low-grade residential units right in front of us. And thank you. I think that's all I have. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak?
My name is Paul Rex. I live at 40 Patricia Lane. As a lot of the other folks have said, we are a family-oriented community, and this application said these are family units. I don't think 600 square feet qualifies as a family unit, 1 bedroom. We are worried about the people we may get here. Will it be government subsidized? Will it qualify for HUD? And what are the trash arrangements? Will there be 14 cans over there every week, or will they have a common receptacle for everybody to use? Like I said, 6 of them 1-bedroom units. Will there be a limit on the number of people that can live in a 1-bedroom unit? Is there anything in the town code to address that? Or the planning commission One of the other things I see here, I have a drawing of the apartments and the size and everything. Most of them have, well, all of them have one door, one entry door, one point of egress, and I know a window qualifies for egress. But most of them open into the kitchen. So if you're in the kitchen and you have a kitchen fire, which is the most common place for a residential fire, and you have a child or a disabled person or something back here in the bedroom or a living room, how are they going to get out? I mean, with one point of egress, really. I mean, they can't, you know, a lot of people are not going to be able to get out a window. But I ask that you not recommend that this be approved. It does not fit in our community at all. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else wishing to speak?
Can I have another 30 seconds, please?
Typically, we do not do that, sir, but I'm going to let you do it tonight.
Well, I don't know if I had 5 minutes or not, but one thing I wanted to bring up was the fact that I have pictures of all the water at the end of that street, if you all care to see them. Just, I don't know why you wouldn't believe us, but if you want to see how bad it gets, I'll be glad to show you.
That'd be good. Thank you, sir. Okay, anyone else wishing to speak?
Chairman and board members, thank you for your time and giving me the opportunity to speak.
Can you state your name and address, please?
I'm getting to that. Kathy Eccles, I live at 255 Patricia Lane.
Thank you, Kathy.
My husband and I, Ronnie, we own the home at 255 Patricia Lane. It's located adjacent to the former daycare center. We've lived there for 28 years. We love our small, quiet neighborhood. While our neighborhood community may be unable to prevent development, all the residents are completely opposed to the addition of this multifamily housing. We're concerned about who's going to live there. Should I fear for my safety? Will there be increased crime? You talked about trash earlier. There is a proposed dumpster pad right at the end of the asphalt driveway there. That's a concern because my house is right there on the corner. That is right in view of my house, and if you've got 7 families that are going to use that, you can only imagine the smell, especially on a hot summer afternoon. So that's a concern. Also, the noise and the safety impacts. Going from daycare traffic, which consisted, I think somebody said earlier, of mainly mornings and evening pickups for children. There was no night or weekend traffic there. 7 apartments will definitely mean more traffic 24/7. The biggest concern is property values will go down in the area if multifamily apartments are built. We'll just lose our neighborhood character. And living there for 28 years, I love my neighborhood. I recently put a concrete driveway in, redid all the shrubs. So we've really put a lot of money into it. And I just don't think that this facility will fit in our neighborhood with the type of single dwellings that we currently have. Thank you for your support of our communities, and again, I'd like to thank you for your consideration on this matter.
Thank you very much. Anyone else wishing to speak? Okay, seeing no one, we will close the public hearing and we'll open it up to discussion. The discussion point is where the commission now takes into consideration your comments as well, and we do some questioning as to of our own and clarifications as to what's been said tonight and maybe what hasn't been said tonight. So at this point, We would like to, is there something you'd like to say?
Well, would you like me to try to respond to any of the questions?
I think we're going to get there, because I think as we go through them, I think we've all taken some notes, and I think we have probably the same questions, and so I encourage you all to stay put and be open to the questions that we're going to have that will be similar and maybe repetitive as to some of the questions that came out tonight. So at this point, commissioners, have at it. Ask your questions, and go ahead, Tom.
Well, the concern I have has already been mentioned. Are you going to be renting on a yearly basis or monthly basis, or how's that going to work?
I'll be happy to answer that question. Typically, the properties are rented on an annual basis. Can you hear me? Typically, the properties are rented on an annual basis. The leases are year to year. They're not short-term leases. This is not a hotel, even though that would be permitted in the B3 zoning district. This is not a hotel. This is not a HUD financed property or HUD project. No. This is not a drug rehabilitation center. This is not a halfway home. Although those are uses that are also called out in the town code, this is not what this applicant is requesting. No refugees. This is a 7-unit residential property.
Excuse me? This is what?
A 7-unit apartment project. Okay.
Did y'all hear what she said? So let me just repeat it just a little bit. She indicated that there would be annual leases, not month-to-month leases, and that it is not intended to be a rehab center, not intended to have refugees, and it is simply a 7-apartment complex.
Well, her wording was typical. There's not any definition there, anything certain in order typical.
Let me address that. As the commission knows, seeking a conditional use permit is the very beginning of a project. After that comes all the engineering, all the work that needs to be done to get the site plan approved. This applicant has a number of other properties, and typically, probably exclusively, those leases are year to year. But those leases have not yet been developed because we are only at the very beginning of the process. So I want to be accurate in telling the commission that typically this developer leases on a year-to-year basis, as does most landlords that have commercial properties other than individuals that rent their home out.
Gotcha.
I hope I've addressed that point.
Good point, good catch. Thank you. Tom, additionally?
You plan on renting those for $700 to $1,200 a month?
I'm sorry, sir, could you repeat that?
You said that you plan on renting them for $700 to $1,200 a month?
Yes, that's right now what the market calls for rents to range. Obviously, there'll be a time lag. The property has to go through the approval, the site plan development process, and be renovated. At that point, the owner will take another market study and determine what are the prevailing market rates. So we're not talking about subsidized rates. We're talking about market rates for those that want this type of an apartment. And many do in our community. Many want a smaller unit. They want a lower rent than renting perhaps a large home or a town home. They typically appeal to singles, young marrieds, or empty nesters, all who are looking for a scaled down living space.
That's pretty scaled. I have other concerns. As far as the, I don't know if we checked with the fire marshals or the code that's involved. Rescue, again, it's always a concern of mine.
Mm-hmm.
As far as police, rescue, fire, being able to get in there, those units, the way they're designed, they're a trial. Mm-hmm. And that really concerns me. I think they're very inappropriately designed at this point in time.
Now, let me
say something, sir. Go ahead.
Clarify. I think I know where you're going to go, Steve. The apartments must be built to code. Mm-hmm. So all the codes.
All architects in our office.
Right.
Steve Simonis with Balzer and Associates, 80 College Street. Our architects, we've done the engineering and the architecture on this building for the layout that you all have seen tonight. Everything's to code. We've talked about ingress, egress, we've talked about emergency access, we've talked about window placement, we've talked about door placement. Everything that's being shown on this plan here before you does meet the building code, meets the fire code. These will be sprinklered units, so the building itself will be sprinklered. So it does meet all the building codes that would be required based on the current code.
How many windows will be in the total complex?
I'd have to count them, Tom. They're on the plan. I just have to count them.
Count them, that's fine. You won't take long.
Does each unit have
Does
Has
each-
to.
Has to. Yeah,
Virginia, you have to have at least one window in a bedroom by code.
No, you don't. Not if it's a sprinklered multifamily building.
Oh,
Ah,
Yep.
okay. Well,
But if you look at
That's
your,
concerning.
but there's only one unit in there, which is the, Andrew, would you go to the plan, please? Next one over. So if you look at the bedroom locations,
oh boy.
you got windows on every one. These are the only two that don't have a window directly to the outside. But because it is a sprinkler building, that was an exact conversation we had with our architects today, specifically about those two units. If it's a multifamily building and it is sprinklered, it is not required to have an egress window to the outside from a bedroom. That is straight from the code.
okay.
So they'd have to exit through the hallway.
You've got egress through this window, and you've got that access
The
right there.
one you were speaking about, that only.
They're connected.
They're connected, Tom.
That's that door right there.
Yeah.
That's the 1-2-bedroom unit. On
So
that
no-
end right there.
No
No.
exit immediately from the bedrooms, but you can exit into the apartment complex and then out from there.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, you could not. I have major concerns with the hallway. I've driven by them myself. In fact, I live on Teller Road, which is right around the corner, and have concerns with the type of unit that's going in there without doing any reconstruction on the outside whatsoever.
Well, I think, and Mary Ellen, correct me or Fulton if I'm wrong, I think the point that Mary Ellen made earlier that there would not be any improvements, I think that was meant to be, we're not adding on. We're not doing an addition. We're not adding a story. It's the building as it sits today. With all the improvements that are going to happen within this, I mean, these are market rate units. So this, as Mary Ellen has said, these aren't low-income subsidized units. So the building itself on the inside is going to completely be, refinished, refurbished, new appliances. I mean, it's a daycare right now. So everything that you see here, the wall sections, the drywall, the sprinkler system, the utility connections, all that's going to be brand new. Everything on the outside, we're not adding on to it. But of course, in order to rent these units, and Fulton, if you want to speak as well, it's going to be cleaned. They may do some painting on some of the metal roof or some of the metal siding. I'm not sure the extent of what they're going to do, but that was the intent, that we're not. Of course, it's going to be cleaned up. We're just not adding. We're not adding square footage to the walls itself, to the building itself, or we're not adding any additional height to it.
Andrew, could you bring that first picture up showing both buildings? Is there going to be any work done to the road set, either roof?
I'm not sure if the roofs need any work on them. From a maintenance standpoint, I'm not sure.
So Steve, there'd be apartments in the brick part as well?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
That would be the one entry in. Units on a unit on this side and a unit on that side as you're going down that common corridor.
And while I have you up there, from an engineering standpoint, and Andrew, this goes to you and the town as well, the last thing we need is another water issue in Christiansburg. And so to the extent that we have one already, or it appears to be that we do have one already, at the intersection there, with paving that, just what kind of impact would they have? And the answer to you, or the question to you, Andrew, would be, is there any studies or anything in the progress today that's addressing the current issue, even prior to this going in here?
I would need to touch base, the planning would need to touch base with the
Engineering,
to see
yep.
if there are any particular issues that have been brought to their attention or have been addressed, documented.
Okay.
And so I don't have that information.
Okay. That would be one thing I would like to request. And Steve, your comment too, if they do asphalt the driveway, then what kind of impact would that have on the current condition?
Right, so from a stormwater management perspective, whether it's gravel or asphalt, we have to look at that the same way as an impervious surface. So what you're going to see, though, is if you look, and Mary Ellen brought this up, the big open expansive areas of the parking lot right now, if the plan goes through, you'll have one entrance. You'll actually be getting rid of a lot of the gravel that's out there. You'll be reseeding and grassing this area. You'll have landscaping along the frontage here. So there's going to be less impervious area once the plan is done, if it's approved, because you'd be getting rid of a lot of rid of this and what you can see. So that gravel access is along this whole frontage right here. So we've got a 15-foot parking setback that's required by code, which is right here, and you can see we're even pushing further beyond that. So you're getting probably 20 feet of grass on either side of that entrance that's not there now. So if anything, that's going to help slow down some of that water as it's coming off. And if the town does have any stormwater concerns that they've seen or that have been expressed at that intersection that would require any stormwater management for the redevelopment of the site, we'd have to do that by state and local code.
Okay. Okay. And while you got the picture up, there was a comment concerning the dumpster right there being out front. Typically, you don't see a dumpster out front of a apartment complex.
That dumpster could be here, it could be back here, it could sit cockeyed back in this area. We wanted to show a dumpster. It doesn't have to go right there. If our neighbor here beside us would like to see that somewhere else, we can certainly move it anywhere along this side. We didn't want to put it down here as everybody's driving up into the site.
Correct.
You know, our neighbors and these residents as well. But we can certainly put it back here. The truck would come in, pick it up, back, and come out.
Correct. Okay.
Now, if there's another option, this would all be private pickup. You know, it was not intended that the town would bring their kind of one-armed bandits in, because, again, for a multifamily, you try not to have multiple cans out there. You got people dragging a trash can into their apartment. The other option we could certainly look at is if, you know, there was basically a corral, a trash corral outside that you could have individual cans that could still be picked up privately. Wouldn't necessarily go to the town. So that's another option we could certainly look at if that would be less impact to our neighbors.
That metal building, does that have a separate entrance besides going through the brick building?
There would be an entrance off of this side right here, Tom.
Go to the other picture, Andrew. And I think you see the entrances, Tom. The other way. Okay. Yeah, see right at the front and then on the side. So like a long hallway, L-shaped. Commissioners, more questions, thoughts?
I have a question for Andrew. How far down Roanoke Street does the current sidewalk reach before there's a gap to get to Patricia Lane?
I know that there's sidewalk in front of Holiday Inn. Express, I don't believe there's sidewalk any further than that. Than I'm aware of. I can go to the area real quick.
There's no sidewalk in front of these, in front of the show gas.
There's no sidewalk. Not that far down Roanoke Street. So, where's the sidewalk end, essentially?
I believe there is a portion of sidewalk, but there's mostly no sidewalk in this area.
Okay. So that's concerning to me because you have, I'm not going to call them market rate apartments because I think you'll be hard pressed to get $700 for one of them. You're probably going to end up with people who have jobs where they may not have a vehicle. A lot of Roanoke Street's apartments that are of this similar style end up with people that are walking the length of Roanoke Street, and I would hate to add more people when we haven't reached sidewalk to this part of town yet, because it puts them in direct line of getting run over by a tractor trailer.
I do want to add that, echoing a lot of what the town residents has already said, the aesthetic, I think something like this would be, I think something like this would be more suited on Radford Street, just the whole use. It doesn't match the profile from what I see, because I've driven down that road many a time. It doesn't match the profile of that whole neighborhood, and just the idea of having an apartment building just put in that type of facility. I mean, it's a warehouse. I mean, it wasn't intended to be an apartment complex. I understand it was changed over many years. I just don't see an apartment building being there. I could see it being used for something else, but not an apartment building.
I'd like to piggyback onto that to the extent of, I agree with your other uses. There are multiple uses. I believe Dude had mentioned about the carpet shop being there, which would be a ideal place for a warehouse and a carpet shop. You know, it could be multiple things. But the reason why I say this is I want to make sure that everyone understands that and don't let me say anything wrong, Benjamin, as a B3 district zoning, there's a lot of things that can go there, okay? And one being like a gas station. Not to say that, you know, that's a great place for a gas station either, but just be careful, and because, you know, there are a lot of uses that will not require the Planning Commission to approve a conditional use permit, okay? And I just wanted to make sure that that was clear. But let's continue.
Yeah, I don't mean to add on to it, but I don't understand why the developer initially, when when they first chose the zoning, didn't decide, okay, I've built houses, I'd like to build more, completely demolished that building and added in 6-7 more units. It doesn't make financial sense to me. Maybe the housing market had crashed at that point. Could have been, 2008 or so when you got to that point. I don't know. But we're in a housing crisis, and if you could add 6 or 7 townhomes versus 7 pretty subpar apartments, I mean, developmental-wise, I don't understand. It doesn't mesh with anything going on over there other than to make a quick buck. And there are plenty of examples in town where somebody's coming to make a quick buck and we've had to deal with it for decades, and I'm not a fan.
So I would ask Planning Commission, I would ask this question. In a lot of our applications over the last several years, I believe just a few months ago it was asked on a project I was working on, when are we going to have some units that are a little bit more affordable? So
That's not affordable, Steve, though. $700 can get you half a townhouse if you go in with your friend. I mean, the Oak Tree townhomes are renting for $1,300, $1,400, and that's a whole townhouse with 3 bedrooms, 2.5 baths.
So 700 is not affordable?
I mean, $700 for that is putting people with not the financial means to get a townhouse by themselves in a position where they're just going to go find a roommate.
And I think my big concern is just the location. I mean, I'm not saying that there's not a need for that type of living space, but just in that area, it doesn't match. I mean, and I do understand a lot of these residents, they're concerned about their property values. I would be too. Just putting a facility like that in, the inside might look fine, but they have to drive by it every day. And I would not be okay with having a 7-unit or any unit go into that space there. That's just my personal opinion.
Yeah.
I think $700 for a 600 square foot unit is, it's already been mentioned, I think they're gonna go for cheaper than that. I don't think people are gonna pay $700 for it, especially looking at the outside. If they were going to, if they had talked about tearing that down and building a townhouse there that would match what's already there, then I'd be in favor of it. But short of that, I don't see it.
I think it was mentioned also a question as to the limit as to the number of residents that could be in the each apartment. So having that, they are single-bedroom apartments, with the exception of one, which has 2 bedrooms. Is there a limit on that to the extent that, as Ashley said?
Yeah, it's town code, two unrelated individuals.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
Yeah,
Can you repeat that, young lady? I couldn't hear.
Town code only allows 2 unrelated individuals in a dwelling. It's what keeps the townhomes where I live from having 6 or 7 college kids in them.
right.
Gotcha.
Mr.
Thank
Chairman,
you.
for
Yes.
clarification, it is a family plus 2 unrelated individuals.
Sorry, a family plus 2 unrelated
That
individuals.
was correct.
Thank you.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
That's what I meant.
There are 600 square foot apartments in town, like the School Lane apartments, which are, have been an affordable option for a lot of people as they get out and, you know, students are starting their career. So it is a nice thing to have, but those are beautiful structure in a nice part of town on East Main Street. So I think if I lived on Patricia Lane, it's a beautiful neighborhood, drive by every day going to Salem, that if I was gonna have residents there, I would want the apartments to match up and look appealing, that would somehow match the character of the neighborhood. So that does look like a warehouse or a auto parts store as it is. I think if I was gonna live there, I'd want it to, you know, to be appealing, fit the neighborhood.
Or even, you know, increase the value. I mean, you
That
have
would help.
anything that'll help. I don't think anything about that will help.
Yeah, it just appears to be like a quick fix, and I agree with Ashley there. You know, there's a lot of opportunity right there in that property, and I look around and I see the townhouses that the people are living in across the street. I was out there today. They're very nice. They're very nice townhouses, and the homes farther down in the cul-de-sac, they're gorgeous. And what an opportunity to put in another townhouse units across the street that look very similar to those townhouses, and I think everyone would be more pleased with something like that. It's just my opinion.
Well, could I ask Planning Commission a question, just so it's clear, so if we go back and we want to relook at this. So is it the use of an apartment, or is it the structure in which the apartments are in?
Both. I think that they're not big enough, first of all. If they had more windows and they were laid out maybe where you're not coming in through the kitchen, where just because you can do something by code doesn't always make it feel comfy by code. I just think that if they were worked a little bit better, and 600 square feet for a studio is great. I think that the size isn't bad. It's the configuration. I mean, the 2-bedroom one, one of your bedrooms has 2 exterior walls to the hallway. Like, I've lived in one of those in college. That's not a fun apartment to live in. Those are going to be people that stay there for maybe 6 months and they're like, heck, I'm getting out of here. This is not what I thought it was going to be. Or they're stuck there and then they're miserable, for the time that they're there, and they don't want to rent and leave. I mean, you want people to want to live somewhere, and I just think that the building you're trying to constrain into is not made to be an apartment complex.
Yeah,
it's a warehouse.
It's a warehouse, and it's just, if you were to take that whole structure, demolish it, put nice apartments there, that would make more sense. But to rework that, I'm in that line of, not in that line of work, but I see it happen all the time in my current place of employment. That doesn't make any sense for anybody to make into an apartment complex in an old warehouse. That looks like that. That is just the look for me. That's the deal breaker for me. I mean, if it had a different, if it wasn't an eyesore, I mean, let's just call it what it is. It's an eyesore. I mean, you can paint it. It's like putting lipstick on a pig. It's not gonna make it any prettier. and it's just, it doesn't match the neighborhood. And I'm all about, I came to Christiansburg because I like the way my neighborhood, where I live at, I like how everything kind of meshes well. I live downtown Christiansburg. That doesn't match anything in that whole area. Going down to the cul-de-sac, it just doesn't match. That's just my 2 cents on that.
And you're taking a brick building and a pole barn and trying to make it a house.
Other questions, commissioners? I think we've established it's not a very good fit for the neighborhood. I think it could be in another location, something that could work. But, and then the other thing I'd like to say is, we're talking about this and based on the traffic and that, I don't think doing something like this would affect the traffic as much as you would think. Having that street being a tough place to turn out onto, especially when 81 has an issue on it, totally agree with you, but we're not really talking about that tonight. But it's well taken into consideration. The turn lane is very short. I noticed that today. I came out of there, took a left-hand turn. I did have to wait. And you have to be cautious because they do speed there. So, but I think that's separate from what we're talking about tonight. I think that the daycare, had its own traffic. I think there's some concern about traffic at night to the extent that you've been able to have a daycare that shuts down at 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock, and then it's nice and quiet. Versus an apartment complex that's going to go in that maybe could be a little bit later at night, a little bit louder for you. So that's just another comment from me.
That concept would be well suited in another part of Christiansburg, just not that part.
So what do we want to do, commissioners? Do we have enough information? I did bring up the part about the water study to the extent that Steve addressed it, that it's not really a concern on this by putting asphalt down, but it would have to be addressed if it was. But I'll ask you guys again, which direction you want to go, or do we push this back for another meeting and find out a little more information on the water?
We have enough people for a vote.
We have a quorum tonight, so.
Chair Johnson?
Yes.
May I ask one question?
Yes, sir.
I would appreciate it if Planning Commission could, I know normally if there's nobody here to oppose a project, sometimes that will go through. We have heard a lot of comments. I think it would be beneficial to us and out of respect for our client to at least give us a chance to go back.
That was going to be my suggestion as well.
Take a look at the application, take a look at what you guys have said tonight, what our neighbors have said, and determine if we want to make any changes to the application or amendments to it, and get back to you before your next meeting, like we normally would in a normal project. I'd just like to give Fulton and his team an opportunity to take another look at it.
Before I answer that, one other question. You talked about the grassy area up front.
Mm-hmm.
Would there be any other what do I want to call it? Green space or trees, landscaping, fencing, anything?
Yeah, and I'd said that. I'm sorry if that wasn't clear. I'm going in the right direction here.
I think it's on the PowerPoint.
It's on the board.
No. That'll work.
So yeah, this area here would be all green space,
right.
Street trees, and then you'd have landscaping in the parking lot islands. And we could also, since this is a conditional use permit, if Planning Commission and Council sees fit, if there's a need for screening, fencing, additional landscape buffering, again, that's kind of what we hear in these first, the public hearings. What are the concerns from the neighbors, and how could we go back and maybe mitigate those, and mitigate some of the concerns maybe Planning Commission has.
Great, great.
As far as I'm concerned, unless you tear the building down and rebuild it, I wouldn't be in favor of it.
I'm watching Tony.
But we can give them a shot. Go back and try.
If you're gonna use this building, it's like putting lipstick on a pig. It's still pig. When you go kiss it, it's still pig.
So the public hearing part is closed, but so hold your comments until we finish our discussion point. Thank you. So I'm hearing a couple different things that potentially there could be a vote tonight, and then I'm also hearing that there's an opportunity to find out a little bit more information on maybe some things that we could do to improve the application.
I think it's only fair to the applicant to give them an attempt to go back into the drawing board, as we've done for Steve many times, because it is a cost. I mean, it's not, you know, a small thing to come and put up the money to come in front of us. So if they already have another meeting, we should allow them the opportunity to come back versus just shutting it down now.
I would agree with that. It's not going to change our timeline by any means. So.
No.
Would you guys be okay with that?
I've already stated my opinion.
Not unless they agree to tear the building down.
Unless they take it down
Okay.
and redo it, I'm not in favor of it.
These are affordable apartments. That's what we want to add more in the town. The people in the neighborhood, they deserve something that's appealing. And, you know, the parking lot out front's not very appealing. You know, maybe that on the side and have a nice grassy area out front. Do things to make it nice. So if you're going to have neighbors, they're the kind of neighbors that fit the character of your current neighborhood. That's what you want. You want it to look nice. And this is a very difficult building to improve. But it's possible. I think we've given a little more time before I'm willing to wait for the peer review vote.
Okay. Felix?
I'll be willing to see what they come up with, but I'm pretty set, and it's going to take a huge effort to convince me to see what you may see in that space. I'll just be perfectly honest.
Okay.
I don't see it.
Okay, good. So I think what I'm hearing is that we're not in a position to take a vote tonight. And what I would like to see is some information on that study on the water. Andrew, if you can do that, and Benjamin. Also, Steve, get with the applicant and go ahead and you guys have a couple different options to go to. And the public, what I'll remind you is this is just the first public hearing, and this is with the Planning Commission, okay? So there will be another public hearing, and that will be with Town Council, okay? So what we hope to hear is a little more information from the applicant, and they'll share that with Town Council in their public hearing as well. Benjamin, do you have some dates for us on maybe our next meeting that we would be discussing this and Town Council's?
You are scheduled to discuss it next Monday, November 15th.
November 15th.
And the date for, it's actually up there on the screen, the date for Town Council is December the 14th, which is Tuesday.
Okay, so given that, what we'll do is November 15th, we'll have the applicant come back to us and present back out to us, hopefully answering some of our questions. But as you can see, there's a lot of concern about this being a good fit in that neighborhood. So at this point, I think we'll delay the any vote tonight, and I encourage every one of you to come back to our next Planning Commission meeting, as well as let's gather all the information a little bit more further, and let's listen to the public comments at Town Council. And one comment here, and I'll let you make your comment, is the Planning Commission they'll make the recommendation to town council, okay? They're the ones that, they will have the final say in this. So usually we're the ones that do the upfront homework and try to get into the deep woods and understand all the issues up front and then present it to them. And again, it's their decision at that point. So, and I'll allow you to speak, sir.
I just want to complicate your water problem just a little bit. The street from that school.
I think you spoke before. Your name again, sir?
I'm sorry?
Your name again?
My name is Warren Self. I live at the end of the cul-de-sac, okay? But that street from the school to the cul-de-sac is downhill.
Right.
And there is a water problem there. And when Judy and I moved into 350 Patricia Lane, we have spent thousands of dollars constructing a dry creek and building curbing at the end of that cul-de-sac to divert that water into the dry creek and off into the woods that we own.
Gotcha.
Several years ago, somebody from the town engineering department came out and said, we're out here looking at runoff and wastewater. And I showed him the dry creek and he said, you did a great job. The town has never put any kind of drain system on Patricia Lane to manage wastewater. And so that school sort of sits at the pinnacle of a hill.
Right.
It drains down to Roanoke Street. It drains down to the front of my house. And so if we put more asphalt up there, even if you're going to put some grassy spots with that asphalt, that runoff coming down Patricia Lane toward the cul-de-sac is just going to increase.
Gotcha.
And when it rains heavily, Patricia Lane looks like a creek. And if you go look at the surface of the road, all of that water running on that surface of the road has deteriorated that street considerably.
Thank you. Yeah, that is one reason why we delayed tonight. We'll get a little information from our engineering department on that and take a look at what the asphalt would do and so on if we were to put something there, as well as if it were to put additional townhouses there, what would that do too, to the extent of are we going to exacerbate the problem that we have at the end of the street and in the cul-de-sac. So with that, I'm going to close the discussion period. And you guys are all welcome to stay, but we're going to go to other public comments. And please come back to our next meeting and we'll share some more information. And then please attend the public hearing for town council. And I appreciate you all for coming out. Okay, well, let's move to public comments on anything other than tonight's discussion. Thank you. I don't believe we have any, so I'm going to close that and go ahead and move it to guys. Thank you, Andrew. Thank you guys for coming.
Thank you. You were wonderful.
Yeah. Where's Jean Ann when I need her?
You weren't.
Probably not hard enough, I guess, huh?
Love taps.
Okay, so let's move to other business. Do we have any other business? Benjamin, I'll start with you.
No, sir.
Okay. Jessica? Anything?
I got nothing.
Got nothing? This end of the table.
Any this new two-way system, but I can ask that after, I guess.
Oh, yeah, afterward.
Yes. Yes.
He's over there.
Yeah, he'll help you set it up, Tom.
I downloaded it, but I don't know.
He has to help.
He has to help you, though. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, anything else? I think we're good. Meeting adjourned. All right.